City of Gary Planning Commission Board meeting for Tuesday, March 12th is in order. Roll call, please, Madam Clerk.
Russell Cundiff,
Here.
Willie Cook,
Present.
Charles Emery, Reverend Protho,
Present.
David Schilling,
Here.
Councilman Brewer, Howard Harper,
Here.
Tony Valree. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 present, 3 absent. We have a quorum.
Okay, we have a quorum. I noticed we don't have any minutes to review, so therefore we can move on to the first and only item, I'm assuming. So our first order of business is the public hearing is petition 19-01. The City of Gary Planning Department, Planning and Redevelopment of 504 Broadway is petitioning to subdivide 24 acres of existing 65.5 acres at approximately 56 under 264 Indiana boundary in Gary, Indiana, to transfer from the City Gary Redevelopment Commission to the Parks Department.
Sure, I'm the petitioner for the
Okay,
planning
petitioner,
department.
Mr. Joe Van Dyke.
Sure.
Will explain.
Yeah, this is pretty straightforward. The North Lake Street property that's commonly referred to as 860 North Lake Street, or the former charter school building, is part of a giant 64-acre parcel that covers most of Lake Street Beach and some of Marquette Park. The intention of the city is to actively market the charter school site to potential developers in the near future. In advance of anything like that, we needed to get a separate address for that part and separate it from the rest of the park and keep the park apart. We had Michael Baker International do an environmental survey, and we had some conversations with neighbors and got a fair amount of feedback. And sort of the fast rule was anything that was already developed, so where there's a parking lot concession stand over, we would market for development, and the majority of the parcel, 42 acres or so, would stay the park. So this really just subdivides it into 2 separate plats, and we'll create 2 separate addresses that we can record at the county. The intention would be for the western portion to then go through the Board of Works and be sent to redevelopment, so we could actively put out a request for proposals. And the eastern portion would go to the Parks Department or stay with the city to remain a park. And that's the long and short of it.
Okay, my understanding is that I've looked over the situation, and your explanation kind of tells it all. I would
Let's do public comment first.
well, we have public comment, and we have a microphone or
I think anybody who wants to speak should come and line up over here, or just be ready to come over here. There's a microphone over here, so we can hear you.
So first of all, if anybody wants to speak for this particular petition, would you please come forward, give your name, address, and 3 minutes, please. If there's anyone who wants to speak against this particular petition, would you please come forward, give your name, address, and speak for 3 minutes, please.
And my name is Robert Golding, address 6261 Juniper Street. The first thing I want to say is I generally favor development. I think this area is in need of some redevelopment. I favor that. However, I do have some concerns. First and foremost, I guess, is that this parcel, this 24-acre parcel that is being discussed here, appears to extend to the east to the center line of Hancock Street north to the lake. If the intention is to redevelop the charter school site, I'm not understanding why it should go all the way east to the center line of Hancock Street. And that ties into my other major concern is that public access and public use of the Lake Street Beach not be lost through this process. That's a major concern. Finally, I also do have some concern about why the Plan Commission is involved in this. Normally when I think of a Plan Commission process, I think of a developer coming forward with a development plan at a study session, and then a public notice is given for preliminary plat approval, and then at some point there's hopefully final plat approval. It would seem to me that this transfer could be accomplished simply by a resolution of the City Council in the City of Gary. So I'm not quite understanding the need for Plan Commission involvement in this. And it ties into the concern that I have is that somehow they can skirt the or go around the normal Plan Commission approval process by having Plan Commission approval of this today. Now, I did read.
I think your 3 minutes is.
Oh, did I speak
Oh,
already?
you've got 1 minute left, actually.
Okay, thank you. I did receive this letter that says, "Dear Gary residents," it does help address some of the concerns that I have, and I would like to make sure that this letter, it does become part of the record of this proceeding today, along with the letter that I had faxed to the zoning administrator yesterday on my law firm, the letterhead dated March 11, 2019. I thank the commission for the opportunity to speak, and I look forward to a productive development that meets everyone's concerns. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, sir.
Should I speak to
I
those
can-
concerns?
I can speak to the process, you speak to the development itself. Why don't you start?
Sure. Points well taken, thank you. And I got your letter and it was good. I also want to just submit on the record that I also received an email from a neighbor, Mr. Dixon, who had some questions. And they were the same ones, public access. He also added that he didn't favor it if there was any use of eminent domain. So also not a thing. Eminent domain is not a tool we have. If we did have it, I don't see a scenario where that would be appropriate here. Lake access and Hancock Street. I put it in the letter. We have got a long way to go, I guess is the first thing I would say. This is a technical exercise, so we simply have an address to market. Some things that are going to go in an RFP. After this, we'll have an address that we can then put out for a request for proposals. And what that is a invitation for people to develop that property. In the past, you've seen the Coney Island thing, you've seen other developers do it. At no point was there an explicit offer to purchase this property, and we're still a long ways off. Now that we go through this process, assuming that this works at the Plan Commission and they agree that this is an appropriate split of the parcel, then we're going to put a request for proposals out. Before we do that, before we formally do that, there's going to be a 30-day comment period. It'll be available on the city's website. Everyone who's here, anyone in the neighborhood or the city or in the world who has a thought on it is welcome to provide their feedback. During that time, we're also going to meet with Public Safety again, and the Parks Department again, to make sure that what we have in there addresses the concerns of the community. Some things that we already know, and this is really, really important, and I'll say it on the record, and it'll be posted on the RFP. Public use of the lakefront is non-negotiable. Has to remain public use of the lakefront. That's not negotiable. Access via Lake Street is non-negotiable. That has to still provide access to the lake. So no one or development or anything will get exclusive use of Lake Street, nor exclusive use of the beachfront. So that's absolutely non-negotiable. Your question about why it extends to Hancock Street. Simply, we have the Parks Department has some needs, the Public Safety Department has some needs. They store stuff on site of where the charter school is right now. They have ingress, egress, they have staging areas, and they're still going to need to maintain that. This provides a bigger footprint for whatever development is to accommodate those things. Another thing that came up when meeting with the Parks Department is the boat launch. We're not going to lose the boat launch. That will also be maintained in this process. So extending to Hancock Street extends it to the end of where the existing parking lot is. It includes the existing but inoperable concession stand, and it creates a footprint big enough to replace the boat launch or resituate it if that's necessary, as well as provide for the needs of public safety and parks, which is why it extended that way. So I think that addresses your questions for the most part.
I guess the only issue I have is why this isn't simply done through resolution of the city council, transferring this among city departments.
So I can plan.
Yeah, I'll speak.
can
You go ahead.
Speak to that. According to our city ordinances, any subdivisions have to go through the Plan Commission. So that's why we're here. We're just following the city ordinance, which requires that. So subdivisions go to Plan Commission, and then they don't go through city council. They're then, once they're approved by Plan Commission, they are replatted at the county.
I guess my only concern there is when I think of a subdivision process, I typically think of there being some kind of development plan or preliminary plat before a plan commission. So, but I mean, if your ordinances are a little bit different than I'm used to seeing, I can certainly understand that, and I thank you for the explanation.
Sure.
So is there anyone else that wants to speak?
Yes.
against this particular project? Please stand for your name,
Patrick Schubert,
name,
742
address,
North Hancock.
and 3 minutes, please.
Yep, I'm only going to take a few seconds. I just want to know if there will be assurances that no currently pristine dunes west of Lake Street or east of Lake Street will be disturbed.
I would, I mean, I can't, I don't know enough about it to speak intelligently, but the short answer is yes, if there's anything that's pristine, it will be maintained.
Okay.
And there was a question about like why it says enhancement on there. That's just a product of when we did the environmental survey. There's a ton of invasives in there. And there's an opportunity to make the Pan and the Chinook Trail better by removing those and providing some maintenance and enhancement to it. So that's why the word enhancement is in that area. But lo and behold, what's park is going to remain park.
I'd like to speak. William Cosart, 728.
Come up a little closer so we got you by the microphone.
Okay. William Cosart, 728 North Lake Street. I act on behalf of my landlord. Now, he's a structural engineer. He goes all over the country. He received the certified thing in the mailbox just Saturday, this Saturday. He hadn't had a chance to respond to anything. Now, I don't know what's going on, if it's a mistake from the post office. I don't like games being played. We want decent notification of stuff on a timely basis, not a couple of days before. So we got the note, and I can't sign for it because it was directed to him Saturday, and he had to come over from another state, in fact, 2 other states, to be able to even get there to respond to this thing. I don't know why these notices are coming this late. I have no idea, but we're opposed to it. I don't want any changes there in the zoning, and neither does he. And I want the city to understand that you should give us citizens or whomever's involved, stakeholders, or whatever you want to call them, timely notice when you're sending these certified letters out. I follow your stuff on TV. We're undeliverable. I understand sometimes people have moved, you have old addresses. We've been there for many, many years, dozens of years. So the thing is, there's no excuse for getting notices a couple of days before the meeting on certified letter. That's what I want to call your attention to. And the second thing is, in my experience in life, I was born here, my grandfather came here in 1914, my dad's side. The most interesting part of any business that goes on in this world is not the tip of the glacier, but what's below it. I can see the top of a glacier or an iceberg, but 90% of it's underwater. When I see things being done, I want full disclosure of everything, on everything that's going on. Not parcels and pieces of it where we have to put things together. And that has always bothered me. And I can see the shape this city and indeed this country is in because of not full and honest disclosure to everybody involved. And I don't like it. I don't like this way it hasn't been delivered to us, and I don't like the idea of way sometimes business is being transacted in this city or in a whole lot of other places in this country. We're going to have big changes all over the board throughout the United States. You can see it right now. People are going to get interested because we don't want to be shortchanged. And we have areas in this city that are in fairly decent shape that really don't need to be tampered with. And we have great hunks of property here that absolutely needs all sorts of attention. And I'm interested in resources going to the areas that are blighted and destroyed, ones I moved away from when I moved out of downtown Gary, where I grew up and lived all my life, and I literally saw my neighborhoods at 3rd and Pierce and those areas being decimated by abandonment, and I saw nobody paying any real attention to them for decades. I fled. I was broken into 3 and 4 times. I couldn't live there. I couldn't have insurance. I was in fear of my life all the time. That's why I even left my real home, my home neighborhood.
Sir, your time is up. Thank you.
I'd like to see everything transparent and explained fully and honestly.
Thank you, thank you.
I can speak very quickly to the public notices. They were mailed out on February 28th. According to the certified mailers that we received back, most residents received them on March 2nd, which was 10 days ago. And a number of these certified mailers, the person who signed for the letter is not the person the letter was addressed to. So I don't know, I don't work for the Postal Service, but I think that as long as someone at the residence can sign for the letter, then it can be accepted, because most of these seem to have a different name.
What percentage is most?
I would say, I have not counted them. I would say the majority. If you want to speak, though, get in line. Sir.
Thomas Sarnak, 1000 North Warwick Street, Gary, Indiana. I realize this map is not some very, very specific thing, but you have the X's there for the Marquette plan. And right now, it goes along the edge of where the current water line is, but the Marquette plan talks about 200 feet beyond the high water mark. And I'm wondering if you are drawing this line according to the high water mark or where the water currently is, which is not the high water line. And my other question is, that part of the park has received federal funds for development. And my question is it legal for you to sell that after it has received federal funds as its status as a park? Because I'm not sure that it is, but I think it's something that needs to be looked at. And I'm happy to hear that there will continue to be hopefully a boat launch that will be functioning, and that there will be public parking besides public access. Because when you say public access, does that mean walking down the beach to Lake Street, or does it mean I could drive down Lake Street and park somewhere at Lake Street and not told I can't park here because I'm not a patron of the of the restaurant or the hotel that happens to be there? I think that public access, I understand the development, but public access for the citizens of Gary, I think, should be your prime concern. Thank you.
Just to that last part about parking, that was pretty explicitly stated by the Parks Board and the Parks Commissioner, that any parking will still need to be maintained. So however many spaces there are now, those have to be maintained by whatever development is, and they'll be shared or whatever, but public access includes parking, so.
Okay, next person, name, address,
Daniel Raycroft, 745 North Hancock.
3 minutes.
And I want to support the voice that was, well, both voices actually. Well, all voices. I think redevelopment is a good thing for the city of Gary, and I look forward to good ideas that build on the value we offer, the benefits we offer people. I know there's lots of people that come out to our beach and enjoy it for the natural surroundings, and I think that's something that needs to be respected. I do ask for specifics, similar to the earlier speaker. You know, we can talk to real numbers, we can talk to a diagram that reflects what's been developed versus painting this big broad brush, which I think is very concerning from my side as a citizen. I think if you're looking at developing the charter school space, you know, let's talk about good ideas there, but this is a fairly big picture of undeveloped, pristine dune lands that I think we should be respecting. And I'd hate to see those get developed. So I look forward to ideas on the spot that's been built, that's already starting to deteriorate. Anything we can do there to support that, I look forward to great ideas. But I'd love to see the dunes being protected.
Name?
Hi, my name is
Address?
Josie Howitz, 704 North Lake Street in Gary. First off, I want to say, just like I think everyone else, you know, I choose to live here because I love it. I love the environment. I am one of Gary's biggest supporters. I'm one that has chosen out of my lifetime, I was born and raised here, who has chosen to remain here because I do believe in our people and the beauty of our area. And I feel like we're so fortunate because every day we can wake up, we can look at the beauty that our nature has to offer, obviously. And just like before, you know, I do want it to know that yes, while I do, you know, support, you know, the city of Gary, I do have some reservations to some degree because, you know, while I do, you know, want us to move forward, at the same time, I do want to make sure that we are being environmentally savvy and sound. I do, just like everyone before, I don't mind, you know, when you are developing land that's already been developed. But, you know, when you take those walks, you know, along, you know, the little way back there, I mean, it's gorgeous with the beautiful animals, birds, dunes, and I would just hate to see that go in any kind of way and to disturb that. And, you know, being a junior ranger, growing up at the Paul H. Douglas Environmental Center, you know, while, you know, there are certain things that can disrupt our ecosystem. And I think that that's something that we really need to make sure that the environmentalists are spot on because, again, as you know from all of the research, we have some areas and some things that are not located anywhere else in the United States as far as our ecosystem goes. So I'm hoping that we'll preserve that. And I do want to just ask a question of clarification too. So from what I understand, if I'm correct, you all want to have this land that's currently here to be transferred to the Parks Department. And my question, I guess, is so once that area is developed?
Opposite.
Okay.
So the red part is going to redevelopment and the green part is going to the
Okay.
Parks Department.
Okay, so with the red area, obviously that would concern my area since I am on 704 North Lake Street. So my concern is, it's hard to say whether or not you oppose it right now. Like right now, we do oppose it because we don't know what would be in that particular spot. And again, as a resident, my hope would be that it would not be something that would become an eyesore, obviously. I know that it's important to build tourism and such, but I just want to make sure that, the opposition right now is because you don't know what is going to be developed. And I just want to make sure that hopefully you'll keep us residents informed because again, we want to make sure that, we're helpful to the process, but we hope that also you can give us that respect too. I mean, I've lived there for 42 years. So it is something that is emotional to me. And I would just appreciate that respect if you keep that in mind.
My name is Arnold Reed. I'm at 712 North Henry Street. I guess I'm kind of parroting a little bit what you were saying. I had trouble deciding whether or not I was opposed to this or for it because I have no clue what they're looking at putting in. A couple of concerns I have, again, is similar to hers. It's a nice area, the animals, the natural part of it is something that I clearly like to see not change. Also have a concern that during the summer, we already have plenty of traffic through there. And we got one bridge that lets us into our subdivision that's up in there. I've had my property there for 45 years. And they spoke of it a long time ago that bridge is questionable as to how strong it's going to be for how long. If we add something else there now that's going to have a lot of traffic, what's going to be done about that? I want to make sure that that gets in consideration, the type of development that's going to take place. Is it going to, as a resident, is it going to screw up my quiet life that I've enjoyed up in there? So just wanted that to get on for consideration there. But right now, I'm just saying I have trouble saying yay because I have no clue what's going there. Thank you.
Thank you. And,
Well, hello, Natalie Johnson.
Hello.
I am told I have a loud voice. Executive Director for Save the Dunes, also resident at 8141 Maple Avenue here in Gary. So first off, I want to begin by saying thank you for the purpose of what this meeting is for, taking the pristine dune land, which I know you looked at Orbis Consulting, they did an environmental assessment, they went through there, proved that this area indeed needs to be set aside and untouched, and thank you for listening to the biological recommendations and to the community who put forth information saying please protect that area, so thank you for that. As far as the potential development footprint, I know there are questions and concerns, and I'm also appreciative and looking forward to the public input process for that RFP. I do have just a couple of questions regarding that I'm hoping today maybe you can answer for me. Will the proposed redevelopment area actually transfer hands from the city of Gary, or is that looked to be leased? That's one question. The other question I have is regarding the natural ordinary high water mark. In addition to Mr. Saranak's comment about the NERC, the Marquette plan, making sure that it is compliant with the February 2018 Gunderson versus the state ruling, the Indiana Supreme Court ruling, as far as public access goes and what interest can take place there. Thirdly, the question regarding whether or not there's any consideration for a pier or boardwalk at that location, I would like to know. So those questions are out there. I'm putting them forth now, hoping you might answer. It gives me something and the public here to mull on, and something that looking forward to, again, putting those comments forth when we have the opportunity to comment on that piece.
Sure.
So, thank you.
Sure, thank you, Ms. Johnson. So starting with the lease sale, short answer is we don't know. We're going to put it out for both. Very likely a sale though. The other side of this is developers, builders, whomever is going to come out and do it, they need to be able to finance it. Given the number of different mechanisms banks use, mortgage companies, the tax deferment you get through the Federal Opportunity Zone program, any number of things could affect that. We're not going to limit that initially. Your question about the high watermark and the Gunderson ruling, I'm going to punt that. I don't know enough to speak intelligently about that at the moment. And sort of addressing this in the last couple, today's exercise is really just, are you approving splitting this thing in half? All the other stuff is going to be, we're a long way from making decisions. I totally understand why someone wouldn't be wholeheartedly for this without understanding what goes there. I get that, but you have to start somewhere. Can you imagine if we didn't do this and we put the whole thing out to bid? That's where we're at right now. So that's the mechanism to do this. We have to start somewhere. Your question about the pier and boardwalk, again, we'll know more as we get interest from developers. We're a long way from that. From my understanding, which again is pretty limited, there's practical problems with putting a boardwalk there. You're at the southern shore of Lake Michigan, you got littoral drift, debris knocks into stuff. So my understanding is that's probably not feasible. So probably not, but I can't speak to that because I don't know nearly enough about engineering and that sort of thing to say what's possible and what's not. Again, and I cannot emphasize this enough, this is merely, are you okay turning this into 2 addresses? I think there's a ton of that needs to be figured out. We're going to have a long opportunity to do it. This is what we have. We've got a fair amount of feedback already, as you might guess. A lot of that's already been incorporated. By week's end, we'll have posted online on the city's website a draft of our RFP. It says, here's what our expectations are as a city. Here's our expectations of you as a developer. Here's what you need to do to go forward. At the end of that comment period, we'll take in whatever additional information we have, use it, finalize something, make sure it's compliant with all the state statutes relative to selling municipal property, and we'll put it out to bid. After that, we're still going to get RFP responses. We'll have all those responses. The staff will review references to make sure they check out, finances to make sure they check out, and those that pass that first level of vetting will then have an opportunity to publicly disclose what their ideas are for the site, what's feasible, are they interested in purchasing or leasing it, what they have that's possible, and there'll be another opportunity for public feedback and concern. Finally, when the property is awarded, that's going to be treated as a use variance under the ordinance. It's not going to be as-right development. Once it's sold, once it's awarded, they won't be able to do whatever they want. It's going to be it'll need to go through first site plan review, the Board of Zoning Appeals, and ultimately the City Council, thus providing another safeguard in place beyond the pretty robust opportunity for feedback up until that point. So that's a really long way of saying we've got a long way to go. This is really just, are we okay with putting this into 2 separate parcels so we can leave the park to park and start to develop a finer footprint for development? So I hope that answers your questions. Okay.
Mr. Schilling, do you have any comments in reference from an engineering standpoint?
I do not. Just following the process to split the property.
Okay. All right, next.
Carol Smith, 1151 North Ripley Street. I'm basically here representing MCC Shoreline Committee and the Friends of Marquette Park. We are elated that you're going to divide these properties and return the major portion of this land to the Park Department. That's been our goal for 2 years. It's been our concern for 2 years. And we're thrilled that it is going back to the park and that it will stay as pristine as possible. And the already disturbed area is the only area that you're considering for redevelopment. So we appreciate that. Thanks for listening to the citizens, and we hope you keep us informed every time.
Yes, ma'am.
He's
Thank
supposed to
you.
be speaking against it. I'm just kidding.
No, you
My name is Nick Bassel. I live at 4734 Monroe Street in Gary. Even though I live in the 6th District, Glen Park, I'm concerned about the entire city of Gary. And what concerns me is this property on the west side going to be used for residential, commercial, and how is it going to affect the rest of the line down Lake Street for people that are renting, leasing, or owning property there. As Mr. Kosarch was saying, we're talking about the tip of the iceberg. Is this going to affect existing properties where people are living now at this time? And how is are we going to be able to maintain the Dune Park and the beach area to keep it clean for the public? And are they going to be providing benches out there at the beach area too? Maybe that's a little off center, but I'm concerned about this whole development area, and I want to make sure that the city's going to be vibrant again, and hopefully we'll have some answers soon. And is there going to be a timeline on what's going to happen? That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you. Doreen Carey, 7304 Indian Boundary, Gary, Indiana. And I'm not opposed to this, Mr. Kunda. That 4 part kind of jump by really fast. So I'd just like to say that, again, as other people have suggested, thank you so much for listening to the public and doing the right thing and preserving the area that is undisturbed and is returning it back to parkland and be preserved forever. Yes. And I'd just like to say, in regards to the park, that now that our neighborhood is basically surrounded by the Indiana Dunes National Park, I hope that in considering the redevelopment of that particular area, that you would partner with the national park to talk about how that area in development will coincide with parkland, utilizing the national park, utilizing those trails that are basically just adjacent to the development area, and really focusing on making this an ecological development that will help draw people to the area and be something that the residents can benefit from too.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carey.
My name is Simon Schrock, and we have a house at 6129 Juniper. I was just wondering if the division from Hancock going north was the logical way of making a straight line, or if it could be Lake Street going up north and then take the disturbed area, but leave the area between the parking lot and what is Juniper on the northern line basically as part of the park. Am I making sense?
Yeah, if you could rejigger the
Well,
eastern.
Instead of going the straight line with the pink development to the lake, have the straight line go to Lakes, up Lake Street, and then cross over where the parking lot is and everything else, because that's already disturbed. But the area that is basically the other side of your house is pristine doing that. There's no logical reason for it to get disturbed. And therefore, I would suggest that we make it a doohickey and then cut it off.
She said, yeah, she's saying cut this out.
Right here. Yeah, that was gonna be
Is there anyone else that want
We
to
can
speak
put a
against the
development
project?
on that.
Can that question be addressed?
I'm sorry?
Can that question be addressed?
Yeah, what I was gonna say is we can put a simple development restriction on the deed. Right now, the way that shaping is, per everyone's suggestions, that anything that's duneland, anything that's native grasses, anything like that shouldn't be disturbed. We can just delineate that right in our RFP when we send it out, saying this is gonna be preservation.
Yeah, as I was listening to that, that was a question of mine too. So that was going to be a question of mine. Why are we going all the way just straight rather than doing a doohickey?
I just have a question. 6218 Juniper.
Can you actually come, we want to get you on the microphone. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lisa Reisman, 6218 Juniper. We're newly building here. I just had a question about if there's any pre-existing ordinances that specify, and I think somebody alluded to it, the commercial application of how that can be redeveloped. For example, I probably wouldn't be really enthusiastic if I knew like a casino or like Hooters was going in there.
Sure.
But I just wanted to know if there were some ordinances or rules that kind of specified what could go there.
Yeah, it would be addressed in the zoning code. Again, right now, that's all zoned for single-family residential housing, so that's why we're treating this as a special case, to be, which makes it wholly negotiable. What we would do in this instance is, it's called a use variance, so it goes to the Board of Zoning Appeals, and then gets finalized at the City Council. That way it has sort of three opportunities for, comments and being able to moderate what's going on there publicly beyond what's going to be done at, sort of the staff level. The other thing is, I forgot what your other part of the question was, I'm sorry, ma'am. Was that it?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
just to understand, like, are there any ordinances that specify that?
Yeah, it's the city zoning ordinance.
City zoning.
Currently, the property is zoned R1, so any commercial property, any sort of development outside of single-family zoning would have to be a use variance. That's what Joe is referring to. So, and that is a very public process with lots of opportunities to chime in.
But again, when we post our draft RFP, there's going to be a list of, when you bid on this property, here's what we are considering. We're looking at hospitality, commercial uses, restaurants, boutique hotels, things in concert with the national park. That'll be explicitly in there, and there's a good opportunity then to make this a little more tangible for everybody, so it's not all technical and here when you're subdividing this and what's the zoning use, but it's a lot more practical. It's literally what the people are going to read and then respond to.
Thanks, just one question. Once this is approved, how long will it take from the time it's approved until the next step? As far as
the thing today?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the timeline would be as follows. Once this is approved, I think by statute we can get it recorded.
Yes.
After which point we can finalize our RFP, our request for proposal, because now we'll have an address to associate with it and a general footprint. That's going to be up for 30 days for public comment. Mid-April, we're going to put it out to bid for 30 days, maybe 45 days, something like that. In the summer, we'll receive all of those at a redevelopment commission meeting. Subsequent to that, we'll have a sort of a vetting process to see which ones are real ones, which ones are nonsense. The ones that references check out, we'll have a meeting probably in that room where they'll all have an opportunity to present their proposal. We're looking at mid-June now, so late June, the redevelopment commission will award it. And there begins the development agreement process as well as citing, right, what goes on there, and then it goes to the Board of Zoning Appeals and site plan and stuff thereafter. So this will go through the end of the summer. And again, depending on what's there, it might take longer or shorter time, depending on what's proposed, how well financed it is, how simple it is, how many components there are to it, and we'll know when we start getting some interest back.
There was an issue raised earlier of the bridge on Lake Street.
That is absolutely going to need to be addressed. So if there's increased traffic there, I think it's about time anyway. And that's a good opportunity. On Thursday, last week, the mayor announced that there's going to be a meeting relative to Lake Street improvements. And so that's not exclusive to this. That really has more to do with road widening or sidewalks and all that stuff down in like the downtown Lake Street area, south of the train tracks on 3rd Avenue. So really from there all the way to the South Shore Station, there's going to be some pretty significant improvements this next construction season. I'll be there to talk about this too, so you can provide some feedback there. But by and large, that'll address a lot of those infrastructure questions.
Where is that meeting?
It's at the Marshall Gardner Center at 7:30 on Thursday.
Do we have any additional comments? Yes.
Is that the end of the comment?
Councilwoman Wyatt?
I have a question. Looking at the survey of this land, it shows that parcel A is 21.2 acres, and then it says parcel B is 41 acres. So I'm just trying to figure out where we get, the footprint is 24 acres and 42 acres. So
This comes from county information, which may or may not be super accurate. This comes from a surveyor who walked the site. So 21.2 to the east, or to the west rather, and 41 to the east is the, I would suspect, because this is going to need to get recorded anyway, that's what it'll be recorded as.
right, okay. So it will just be the, instead of 24, it'll be the 21.2
Correct.
acres and then the 41.
Correct, and I imagine that had something to do with where the shoreline cuts in and out and things like that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We have one more.
I just have a quick question actually encouragement. When we do see the next footprint, I would strongly encourage that the city do a delineation using the physical characteristics tests for the natural, ordinary, and high water mark definition.
Absolutely.
And that, I think, would answer a lot of questions and certainly would help with that public input process. Appreciate that.
Any other comments?
Okay, if that's all the comments that we have. We just have a recommendation from staff on this issue.
My recommendation, based on everything that we've heard here today, everything that Joe has presented, my recommendation is to approve. I think that this is a great way to preserve our natural ecosystem and, ensure that this area remains a park in perpetuity. So I think staff recommendation is to approve.
Okay, haven't heard the,
Mr. Chair.
Oh, I do have,
city plan.
I'm sorry. We got so caught up in this public comment, I forgot about our notices. Let me give you the information on that. 79 notices were mailed, certified mail. 2 were returned undeliverable, so the addresses didn't exist. 6 were opposed, either they called in or they mailed in. 3 were not opposed, either called in or mailed in, and 68 did not respond.
And this was just in the first.
Oh, you can just bring them and we'll add them to the record. Thank you.
Planning director, that was just for the first district. That what they mailed out or was that?
Yes,
city?
that was for the mailers. Okay.
All right, Bill, matter of fact, this is the time for the commentary from the board members.
I would want to echo the concerns of the young lady back there relative to making the caveat that we not involve this part of the land right here. And what did you say it would be?
We would put a deed restriction on any RFP that went out.
Okay, whereas this part would remain pristine.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I would also just add that any development, and we spoke about the variance process and we spoke about how it would have to go through BZA, but obviously any development here would have to ensure compliance with any local or regional plans. So that would include the Marquette plan, or it would include our comprehensive plan, has to comply to the zoning code. Everything has to be in compliance with state, local, federal law.
Okay, any more comments from the attorney or either any other board member in reference to this? Any other comments? All right, if there's no more comments, it's time for the board to take a vote. Madam Clerk?
Need a motion.
Make a motion,
Do we have
Mr. Chair.
a motion to approve?
I make a motion that we approve it with the caveat as outlined by Mr. Van Dyke relative to the land right here.
Okay, it's been motioned
Second.
and second. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Cundiff,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Protho,
Yes.
Schilling,
Yes.
Harper. It's 5-0, the motion passes. So this property has now been subdivided, it'll be recorded with the county. Congratulations.
Thank you all for coming out.
Yes, thank you.
The board members, everybody in the board, please
Adjourn.
pass the,
Move to adjourn, please. Move to adjourn.
do we have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
All right, let's close the meeting. Board members, I was gonna say, have you sign.
We're adjourned.
This is Mrs. Hertz'
I was gonna say
final,
something if you did.
final, board meeting.
This is Miss Hertz' final plan commission meeting before her retirement,
So she
so
thanks.
everyone should say.